We anticipate starting in the next 2 to 5 minutes, so please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand at ease just for a minute. Looks like Leader McConnell got held up just for a second, so just bear with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, the arrival of the official party. Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. We are here to share some exciting news about the significant federal funding secured for the Kentucky National Guard and to highlight the continued support for our critical programs and ongoing missions. To start off, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker, Senate Republican Leader Mitch McConnell. He is the longest-serving Senate party leader in American history. As a senior member of the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator McConnell has been instrumental in securing millions in federal defense funding for the Kentucky National Guard. In Washington, Senator McConnell has championed the Guard's priorities and our service members, helping to secure resources for upgrading our military capabilities and our training facilities. These are resources that strengthen the Kentucky National Guard and solidify Kentucky's central role in our nation's defense at home and abroad. Please welcome Senate Republican Leader Mitch McConnell.
Good morning, everyone. Governor, good to see you again. We've been together on a number of issues over the years where we've worked together. And I'm particularly pleased to be here today for a number of reasons. One, I think that the American public is not yet fully aware of the challenges that we have in the world today. It's reminiscent of that period before World War II, when we basically thought it would all go away if we just ignored it. Well, that's clearly not going to happen again this time, at least without me making a contrary argument. I want to recognize all the Guardsmen, all of you here today, deployed abroad as well, and thank Major Lamberton for hosting today's event. I'd like to start by revisiting history for a moment. The year is 1982. U.S.-Russia relations are at a low ebb. Israel is at war with terrorists at its doorstep. America is in a standoff with China over Taiwan, and record inflation weighs on Americans here at home. Sound familiar? My point here is that we've seen all of this play out before. We've seen what's needed to preserve American leadership, what's needed to stop a bully. Then as now, you do that with peace through strength. For the first time since the Cold War, we live in an era of big power competition. America's adversaries, from Beijing to Moscow to Tehran, are all working together. Sort of an axis of evil. Kentucky Guardsmen saw the consequences of this whole unholy alliance firsthand when last fall Iran-backed forces attacked a U.S. base in Jordan, killing 3 soldiers and wounding several Kentuckians. Iran's unprecedented attacks on Israel just last month and is yet another reminder of America's role in this conflict. Facing an onslaught from above, U.S. service members bravely joined in Israel's defense to help fend off over 300 drones, cruise, and ballistic missiles. As I've said time and time again, these threats are linked, and to meet them seriously, we must invest seriously in our own defense. Congress took an important first step toward this end in our annual appropriations process. Some of the investment that I worked on include procuring the Guard's first ever unmanned aerial system, completing the Joint Force headquarters here in Frankfurt, and constructing a new training range at a project nearly 2 decades in the making. As I've said to my colleagues, providing you, our service members, with the capabilities you need takes time and takes money. And it requires restoring our own capacity to produce them. The National Security Supplemental, which became law last month, was a lot harder to pass than it should have been. But we did finally do the right thing on a bipartisan basis. It devotes resources to counter our adversaries abroad while retooling our defense industrial base here at home. Many of Kentucky's suppliers stand to benefit from these investments, from high-quality munitions at Bluegrass Army Depot to cutting-edge submarine technology in Louisville. Our legislation also provides, of course, critical security assistance for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. It gives our friends the tools to defend themselves and the resources to degrade the military powers of Russia, Iran, and China. All of that without putting a single U.S. soldier on the battlefield. The supplemental also takes up the difficult work of reversing decades of underinvestment in our own industrial capacity. Over the last 4 years, our defense has seen actually a net loss in its budget, a net loss. Historic inflation and chronic underinvestment have strained procurement of vital munitions and equipment, including the life-saving defense technology needed on the battlefields of Ukraine and the Middle East. We cannot and should not let political differences hold our national security hostage any longer. If we want a world with less conflict and fewer challenges to America, we must preserve our strength. Step one is rebuilding America's military power with serious investments in our defense. These challenges I've outlined illustrate several timeless lessons from Reagan's foreign policy, and they ring just as true today as they did 4 decades ago. We must impose real consequences on our adversaries. Funding preparedness is a lot cheaper than funding a war. It is really important to remember for those critics who say, oh, you shouldn't be spending here or spending there. If you're in a conflict, you really are spending money. In World War II, we were up to 37% of our GDP. Right now, we're spending about roughly 2% of our GDP. That needs to come up if we're going to be adequately prepared to avoid having way more spending coupled with loss of life as well. And the way you do that is to impose real consequences. In other words, you stand up to the bully. Because if the bully doesn't strike, you're in much better shape, both financially and in terms of loss of life. This is what Reagan called peace through strength. And this is our roadmap as we stand up to China, Russia, Iran, and all of the little groups that Iran funds creating chaos in the Middle East. So congratulations to all of you for serving. We're so proud of you and glad to be helpful in any way we can.
Thank you, Senator McConnell. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. Governor Beshear has been a steadfast supporter of the Kentucky National Guard and a strong advocate for our state. His leadership has been instrumental in securing the state resources needed to enhance our capabilities and serve our communities effectively. Please welcome Governor Andy Beshear.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Captain, for that introduction and for welcoming us today. This is a great day for the Kentucky National Guard, and any time that the Commonwealth is in need, the Guard is there, and every time the Guard shows up, regardless of how tough that day is, there's going to be a better day after and a better day after that. I've always said Kentucky has the best National Guard in the entire country. And while we always knew it was true, turns out we proved it this last year, when for the first time, the Association of the United States Army created an award for the best National Guard, and we won it in the very first year. So thank you to our Guard. Congratulations again. Our Guard received this award due to their heroic actions on key missions, and missions including following the devastating natural disasters that hit our state in 2021 and 2022. And Monday, I was on the ground in some of those same communities, and our Guard was there once again, helping those communities, showing them that they were not alone. I got to see you in action once again, showing our people that we would not abandon them and that we would help them rebuild. I was in one area that had been hit for the second time. It had been hit in December of 2021, and in fact, one of the same families that had their new house wiped out on the very same corner. Yet the Guard was there, just like you were in 2021, helping them to see that there would be better days that follow. I remember back to July of 2022, when I believe our National Guard, combined with others, had the most effective, immediate response to a natural disaster. When the floodwaters hit, you and other first responders saved more than 1,400 Kentuckians in a 48-hour period. That's 1,400 Kentuckians that are alive today because of your work, your skill, your training, your preparation, and Senator, the resources that you and others provide them to have in those responses. The award from the Association of the United States Army represents the Guard members who answered these calls, as well as calls for overseas missions and at the southwest border. Their work made it easier for Customs and Border Protection agents to carry out their law enforcement duties. This award is also based on readiness, physical fitness, and training. And nowhere was that more apparent than the first of 149th Infantry Regiment, the Kentucky unit that received the Walter T. Kerwin Jr. Readiness Award. On Team Kentucky, we don't just show up for ceremonies, though they are important. We prioritize our active duty members and veterans, not just in words, but in policy, administration, and execution every single day. That's why I'm proud to say our Department of Veterans Affairs team won their third straight VA Abraham Lincoln Pillars of Excellence Award for customer service. Their customer are our veterans, meaning our veterans are getting the very best service in the nation, and we've done it 3 years in a row. I'm also proud that for our veterans that need a little help near the end of their life, that all 4 of our long-term care facilities for veterans where we give them that care are 5-star rated, the highest rating that you can receive. We have a lot of pride in this team for taking such great care of our veterans and their needs. And we know that more help is needed. And that's why I'm proud that working with the General Assembly, we secured funding not once but twice to construct the Bowling Green Veterans Center in Warren County. This has been in the works for over a decade. It's been needed for so long, and we are stepping up to meet those needs. We've added funding to support more cemetery interments and make sure all our veterans get the respect of that service that honors their sacrifice throughout their life. We stepped up to make sure the Kentucky Medal of Honor monument at Valley Forge is worthy of those Kentuckians that have earned that honor. Every state has a monument at Valley Forge. Ours was fiberglass, no longer a real monument to where Kentuckians show up at Valley Forge. They see that we value service, especially service that meets the Medal of Honor requirements. And for 2023-2024, the state is providing $20.5 million in National Guard support. That's everything from utilities at Guard facilities to funding emergency responses in support of Kentucky Emergency Management, as well as drug eradication efforts. Abroad and home, you make us proud. Just last week, I was joined by Assistant Adjutant General, Brigadier General David Munkus, to provide an update on our counter-drug program and to support the work that is going forward by signing this fiscal year 2025 State Drug Interdiction and Counter-Drug Activities Plan. We announced that thanks to the work of our counter-drug team, which includes multiple state, local, and federal agencies, including the Kentucky National Guard, the Appalachian High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, Homeland Security Investigations, and the drug enforcement agencies, that during the 2023 fiscal year, this team, your team, saved Kentucky lives by supporting the seizures of 265,170 fentanyl pills, each of which powerful enough to kill a Kentuckian, as well as 208.3 pounds of fentanyl. In 2023, this team increased the number of fentanyl pills seized by more than 5,000% and seized more than 100 pounds more of fentanyl compared to the prior year. This group also supported the seizure of 822 pounds of methamphetamine and more than 310 pounds of cocaine. It enabled 164 arrests and facilitated surrender of more than $2.3 million in cash that were supporting drug activities that could kill our people. And you're not slowing down. So far this year, the team has supported the seizure of more than 86,150 fentanyl pills and approximately 93 pounds of fentanyl. We know the rise of this deadly drug, the deadliest we've ever faced, one that is taking more lives more quickly, even with Narcan being more available, even with recovery being more available now than ever before. Your work is making a difference. In 2022, we were one of only 8 states that saw a significant decrease in overdose deaths. And pretty soon we will have the final statistics for 2023. And let me tell you, you ought to be seeing some light at the end of the tunnel because of this good work and the work of so many others. We've also provided more than $19 million for 41 capital construction projects to maintain or improve facilities for our soldiers and airmen. Major General Lamberton, we know what this really means. And we're going to make sure our soldiers always have the very best, because you always give us your very best. And thankfully, we know we're not in this alone. Today, we're here to highlight the incredible work of our federal partners. Senator McConnell talked a little bit about the details of these federal investments. I mean, they included more than $16.4 million for the Kentucky National Guard to construct a vehicle maintenance facility in Burlington. They included $7 million for the Kentucky National Guard to construct a new training range at the Wendell H. Ford Regional Training Center in Greenville. They included $2 million for the Kentucky National Guard to complete a state administrative building just down the road. It's looking pretty close, and it's looking pretty good. So let's thank him and all the federal partners for coming through with these dollars and others. And I'm grateful for his highlighting the number of Guard that we've had deployed and really that we've had deployed over the last decades. Currently, we have 383 Kentucky Guardsmen deployed doing important work. And we saw that even after some of the deployments in the past and how dangerous they were, that the current ones are too. When Tower 22 was attacked in Jordan, I might have been one of the few civilians who knew that our Kentucky National Guard was stationed there. That was an attack on our country, and it was an attack on our people. And I'm grateful about the senator talking about the fact that national security cannot be partisan, and our response to it cannot be partisan. When that attack happened, the senator talked about it being an attack on our country and the need for strong national defense. That's the type of response we need. Others in Washington used it to attack people from another party. Didn't talk about an attack on our country. Didn't talk about the lives that were lost. If we are going to stand up to the adversaries that truly exist out there, we have to know when it comes to national security that we are not each other's enemies, and that this is not a game of red or blue or D versus R. It's about the United States of America protecting our people, supporting our troops, ensuring that the dollars are there for our Guard. And I appreciate the senator's strong stance on our need to be strong internationally and to stand up to tyrants where they are, because we know that they won't stop. Our National Guard has done so much, and we know sometimes you have sacrificed so much. On Monday, we were here for our National Guard Memorial Day service. And if anybody needed a reminder of the selfless actions and sacrifice of our National Guard, all they have to do is look at that National Guard memorial. For over a decade, that memorial has stood to honor those who served the Guard and lost their lives in service to our country. On Monday, we added 5 more names to the 291 other heroes on that solemn memorial. These folks represent the best of Kentucky and the best of the United States of America. So to our Guard, we are grateful for your service, and we pray for your safety daily. I felt that personally because I had friends at Tower 22 and waiting to hear about the injuries and about the loss. I was thinking about so many people, whether in this room or outside of it, and recognizing what some don't always see when they see you in the uniform, that you're our neighbors, that our kids play baseball together, that you are a part of our daily lives, and you are so important to our community. Your service in the Guard is only one part of what you give to our community, and we thank you for being willing to leave at a moment's notice to help Kentuckians to step away from that job and sometimes to step away from your family for weeks or months on end. And so to Senator McConnell and all of our federal partners, Team Kentucky is grateful for your hard work and your unwavering support. We are home of the free because of the brave. And we've had a lot of reminders that we have to stand as one people against all of the dangers of this world. It's what made the United States of America the greatest country that this world has ever seen. And we got to remind ourselves that we are one big team as we face the challenges of the future. God bless y'all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor Beshear. Our next speaker is Major General Hal Lamberton, the Adjutant General of the Kentucky National Guard. Major General Lamberton has dedicated his career to the service of our nation and the state of Kentucky. His leadership and commitment to excellence have been pivotal in ensuring the readiness and effectiveness of the Kentucky National Guard. Please welcome Major General Hal Lamberton.
Morning, everybody. A terrific morning as we get things underway, and Senator McConnell, Governor Beshear, the men and women of the Kentucky National Guard and friends of the Kentucky National Guard. This is a huge event for us, and in particular, Senator, you alluded to the dynamic of security in the world today. And as you, the governor, as our commander in chief, and as a number of us here in the room know right now, we've got several hundred guardsmen who are currently serving over in the Middle East. We've got folks who had recently served over in Poland and Romania, and in particular supporting the operations that fed into the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. So the Guard at this junction, it's a little bit more than just stacking sandbags in event of a flood, and very much it's a crucial dynamic of the entire DoD or Department of Defense operations. That the neat aspect of being a guardsman these days, whether it's our folks serving their local communities, serving the greater Commonwealth, or being involved with national security and overseas operations, this is the most during my time frame in the military that the Guard's ever been a part or engaged by DoD at all levels. And towards that end, and quite simply, I attribute it to the quality of the men and the women we've got in the Kentucky National Guard, both the Army component and the air component. That's what makes it a pleasure to serve with you. I believe that's a part of what gives each of us a sense of purpose for what we're doing and serving, whether it's at the local community level, across the entire Commonwealth, or for overseas operations with the nation's security, for that matter, even the international security being at stake. And of the three projects which our governor alluded to specifically, whether it's the machine gun range out at the Wendell H. Ford Regional Training Center, or the new field maintenance site at Burlington, or as was just mentioned, as well as everybody out here drove by our new Joint Force headquarters this morning. To some folks, it might seem kind of trite, but sir, from our perspective, each one of these projects are huge, because it makes a significant difference for us in the Kentucky National Guard and your National Guard, for quite simply our professionalism, our proficiency, the resources, and in particular the fiscal resources that come to us that enable us to be good stewards of the logistics, the support, to be the beneficiaries of your support, sir. That with each one of these three projects in particular, we have 52 facilities across the entire Commonwealth. And so it means for a lot of our soldiers and airmen, whenever they've got to assemble for a training event, whether it's during the proverbial 1 weekend a month, or the 2-week annual training over the course of a year, we have to travel significant distances to get there. In the past, because of lack of these facilities, we even had to travel out of state at times. So you consider the precious commodity of a soldier or an airman's time. That's the one resource that we cannot recoup in any way. These facilities, as enabled by your fiscal sponsorship, causes us to be in a more efficient force. And in particular, in these days of both the response of the Guard to our Commander-in-Chief, whether it's more recent tornadic incidents that we're responding to, or other issues of the greater Commonwealth, or other issues of our national security, my impression is that this enables us to be a more proficient, more professional, as I said already, a greater steward of the resources that we have available to us, and quite simply a more impactful proponent of the greater Department of Defense at this junction. Because you hear it from a lot of our national military leaders, and I still very much hear it repeatedly, that there is no way the DoD, the Department of Defense, could do its mission without the National Guard these days. We're a huge percentage of the overall force structure for the Department of Defense, and which virtually everybody, or most everybody in this room, is aware of. The National Guard we have our own nuances that are not applicable to the active duty component that are not applicable to the reserve component, that are not applicable to any one particular branch other than the National Guard. And so our ability, our requirements to serve both our local communities, our Commonwealth, our international responsibilities, there is no other component to the military that does that. There is no other component of the military that is prepared to do that. And while the folks in the other branches and the other components are highly proficient for what they do, I'd offer for the men and the women we've got in the Guard, we're the best at what we do. And so, again, it's quite simply an honor to serve with each one of you all here into the room. Sir, it very much is appreciated. Your benefactory nature to the resources that we've received. And quite simply, it does enable us to be a more proficient force for whatever lies ahead. I don't know what next week, next month, next year will bring, but I'm completely confident, again, as our Commander-in-Chief just alluded to a moment ago, whatever it is, our folks will be able to respond to it. And it's because of the quality of the folks that we've got in the Kentucky National Guard. And quite simply, I salute each one of you all because I'm proud to be one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Major General Lamberton. Now, we will now open up the floor to questions for Major General Lamberton and retired Brigadier General Steve King, the Chief of Staff of the Kentucky Army National Guard. And we'll host a 5-minute Q&A session strictly dealing with the subject of the federal budgetary announcements and their benefits to the Kentucky Guard. So, however, if you have any questions for Senator McConnell, he'll be available immediately after this session. So, do we have any questions to start off with, sir, gentlemen?
So let me go ahead and maybe prompt somebody to ask a question at this point, and I'll defer to Brigadier General retired Steve King. Steve, in particular, for heading our facilities, he now also serves as our Chief of Staff, but I believe we have also been the beneficiary of Steve's and the other folks in facilities' efforts over time. That, as you might imagine, there's a finite availability of resources, and in particular, I'm referring to financial resources that are made available to the military. And by virtue of Steve's stewardship, by virtue of his pre-planning, we've been quite simply able to, if you will, punch above our weight in gaining additional resources for some of the facilities. Whether it's this hangar, which is still new to some of the folks around here, that the other projects that I just mentioned, we have effectively benefited from other entities across the 54 states and territories who were not necessarily able to capitalize on all the resources that were made available to them. So to General King's forward planning, to the benefactory aspect of what the Senator has been able to provide to us, your Kentucky National Guard has been very much the beneficiary of each of these. And towards that end, should anybody have any questions, we open it up to your queries at this point.
Sir, given no questions, I would take one moment just to make a simple statement and really just to provide a little bit of a perspective on what these resources are going to mean to us, these facilities that we have either completed or will complete in the near future, specifically the multi-purpose machine gun range. That project really became crystal clear to me that we had to have that in the state of Kentucky. In 2003, when I was a newly appointed battalion commander. And at that point, my sole purpose in existence in the military was to train and prepare our soldiers in their skill sets, as well as their capabilities collectively to mobilize and deploy. that point, we had we get soldiers 1 weekend a month. And the reality is that time is way too precious to spend having to go multiple places to complete one mission, which is weapons qualification. And at that time, having to do that, it was just, it means that it's one less thing you can't get to in most cases. And getting this range built at our Wendell H. Ford Regional Training Center in Greenville, Kentucky, is going to enable our soldiers and our units and our leaders to take their units to that location, complete all of their weapons training requirements in one location, and be able to return and get it done in one a drill weekend. And outside of our annual training, crew serve, and individual weapons qualification is probably the greatest thing that we spend the most time and resources on. So huge savings in resources, and honestly, Senator McConnell, I cannot thank you enough, because we have been working on this project literally for the last 2 decades. It has been on the Future Years Defense Program, listed 6 times, and it's been pulled on numerous occasions for one reason or another. And frankly, to have the support of Senator McConnell, we were finally able to get it across the goal line for full funding. And honestly, I don't know where to shake his hand, salute him, or hug his neck, but we are very much going to be a much better military as a result of it.
Senator, anything else?
Good to see you guys.
So once again, we appreciate everybody being here this morning. It's a terrific day. It's a day of which we're very happy to be the beneficiaries of everybody's engagement. Ma'am, if you could do me a favor, maybe I've had too many explosions go off nearby, but come forward if you can speak into the microphone and share.
Absolutely. So in 2021, we procured $16.6 million to construct the Joint Force Headquarters. When we did the original programming for that project, that was back in roughly 2015, and we were very much under the Budget Control Act and sequestration. And we could not build that project out to the full requirement. And at that time, we value engineered it to get the most we could for the $15 million that was planned. And we awarded the project in fiscal year 21. And of course, that was right in the middle of the global pandemic, and where we saw huge increases in cost of construction materials, as well as just inflation as a whole was running rampant. Kentucky was one of the few states across the nation that was still able to award their MILCOM project, but we did so recognizing that we couldn't build everything that we want. So in this year, we got an additional $2 million to complete that project. We have $16.4 million for our field maintenance shop in northern Kentucky. And then finally, we have a total of $9.9 million programmed for the multipurpose machine gun range, also in FY24. Thank you.
Any further questions? Well, once again, we're appreciative of everybody gathering this morning. We're appreciative of the senator for being here. We're appreciative for the governor being here. And I am very much appreciative of everybody else here this morning in uniform. Thank you.
Where they say?
Sit down.
I'm sorry. Where's it gonna be? Right there. Yeah.